Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here. Ms. Bright, I want to start with you. I want to particularly thank you for being willing to share your story and Carson's story. I'm the father of three, two boys, and you've lived every parent's nightmare, but thank you for being willing to try and see some good come of that and for being so bold in telling your family story. I want to ask you about one thing that I heard you say, and you've also written it in your written testimony about Carson. You said it wasn't until Carson was a freshman in high school, so about 14, I would guess, that we finally allowed him to have social media because this is what caught my attention. That was how all the students were making new connections. Could you just say something about that? Because that's the experience, I think, of every parent. My boys are 10 and 8, and they're not on social media yet, but I know they'll want to be soon because they'll say, well, everybody else is on it. So could you just say a word about that?
Yes, thank you. We waited as long as we possibly could, and we were receiving a lot of pressure from our son to be involved. I hear this a lot from other parents, you don't want to isolate your kid either. And so we felt by waiting as long as possible, talking about the harms, don't ever send anything that you don't want on a billboard with your name and face next to it, that we were doing all the right things and that he was old enough. He was by far the last kid in his class to get access to this technology, yet this still happened to us.
Yeah, that's just incredible. Well, you were good parents and you were a good mother, incredibly good mother, clearly. This is why I support and have introduced legislation to set 16 years old as the age threshold for which kids can get on social media and require the social media companies to verify it. I heard your answers down the panel a second ago to Senator Kennedy. I just have to say this, as a father myself, when you say things like, well, the parents really ought to be educated. Listen, the kid's ability, and I bet you had this experience, Ms. Bright, the kid's ability to figure out how to set what's on this phone. My 10-year-old knows more about this phone than I know about it already. What's going to be like in another 4 years or 5 or 6 years like your son, Ms. Bright? So I just say as a parent, it would put me much more in the driver's seat if the law was you couldn't have a phone. I'm sorry, you couldn't get on social media till 16. I mean, that would help me as a parent. So that's why I'm proposing it. Parents are in favor of it. I got the idea from parents who came to me and said, please help us. Please help us. And listen, I'm all for tech training. It's great. But I just don't think that's going to cut it. So I've introduced legislation to do it. Let's keep it simple. Let's put this power in the hands of parents. I'd start there. Second thing, Ms. Bride, you brought suit against Snapchat and others, and I've got your lawsuit right here, and you were barred by Section 230, and you testified to that effect. They just threw it all out, right? Mm-hmm. The court threw it all out?
Right. And the lawsuit was not about content. It was about the company's own policies that lured my son in to think that this product, this app, was safe, this anonymous app, that they would monitor for cyberbullying and reveal the identities of those who do so. It had nothing to do with content.
Yep, and this is why I think it is just absolutely vital that we change the law to allow suits like yours to go forward. And if that means we have to repeal all of Section 230, I'm fine with it. I'm introducing legislation that will explicitly change Section 230 to allow suits against these social media companies for their own product design, for their own activities, for their own targeting of kids, for them to be sued for that, and it will allow you and every other parent, Ms. Bright, to get into federal court. We will create a federal right of action because here's what I've decided. Listen, I'm a lawyer, former attorney general. I believe in the power of courts, and what I've decided is you can fine these social media companies to death. FTC fined Facebook, $1 billion or something a couple of years ago. They didn't change their behavior at all. They don't fear that. What they will fear, though, is they fear your lawsuit. That's why they fought it so hard. They don't want parents suing them. They don't want to be on the hook for damages, double damages, treble damages. Well, they should be. And if we give the power to parents to go into court and say, we're going to sue you, they will fear that far more than they fear some regulator here in Washington, D.C., who, by the way, is probably looking to get a job with that same company when they rotate off their regulatory panel. Because that's what happens. All the regulators here in D.C., they go to work for these tech companies as soon as they're done here. Well, enough of that. Let's put power into the hands of parents, allow you, Ms. Bride, and every other parent in America who has a grievance here to get into court and sue these people and hold them accountable. And I'd say the same thing about child sexual exploitation material. Let's let parents sue. And I will introduce legislation that will allow any parent in America who finds child sexual exploitation material online to go sue the companies for it. If they know or should have known, the companies, that they were hosting this material, let's let them sue them. That, I tell you what, if these companies think they're going to be on the hook for multi-hundred-million-dollar or more fines and damages from multiple suits all across the country, they'll change their act. They'll get their act together real quick. So my view is enough of this complicated regulatory this, regulatory that. Just give the American people and American parents the right to get into court and defend their kids and to defend their rights. And if we do that, I think we'll see real results. Last thing, Mr. Chairman, I know I'm going long here, but I just want to say this. We have these hearings every so often. I love these hearings. They're great. Everybody talks tough on the companies. And then later on, watch, we'll have votes in this committee, real votes. And people have to put their names to stuff. And oh, lo and behold, when that happens, we can't pass real tough stuff. So I just say this to my colleagues. This has been great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. This has been great. But it's time to vote. It's time to stand up and be counted. I've been here for 4 years. It's been 4 years of talk. The only thing we've gotten done on big tech is TikTok, which we finally banned from all federal devices. That's the only thing of any significance we have done on big tech. That has got to change. And I want to thank all of you for being here to help galvanize that change. Thanks for indulging, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.